Go outside right now. Go outside and look to your left and look to your right. If you're looking in one of your neighbor's windows, you might just be a little bit too close to your neighbors. Hi, I'm Haley Rich with Coldwell Banker, and today we're discussing the pros and cons of living on acreage. Have you ever just felt the need for space, a little bit of privacy, somewhere to walk that's yours? There's wildlife, there's wildflowers. I mean, truly, living out on acreage is a whole new experience, and it is so cool. Just like with any property purchase, you do have to do your research. Rural properties definitely have their own little quirks. Let's start with the pros, because in my opinion, they greatly outweigh the cons. Pro number one, you get space. I know we already talked about this part, but let me tell you, getting on a four-wheeler and just blasting around your property is so fun, and it's yours, and you get to do that. You just get to go, and you get to go play, and it's on your property. Getting the space to raise a family where you're not all stacked up on top of each other all the time, where you can have animals, you can have livestock, you can have chickens. I mean, truly, having that extra space around you to create the life that you want for yourself is so rewarding. Pro number two, less restrictions. Now, I'm not saying rural properties never have an HOA. Some of them do, most of them don't. HOAs are the people that tell you what you can and can't do with your property. Now, in most cases, if you buy a large piece of property, that is yours to do with as you please. Now, again, this is a property by property basis, but on the whole, you will have way less regulation, you will have fewer people in your business, and you will get to do with your property as you please, as long as it's legal. Perk number three, houses are way cheaper when they've got land around them. Now, I'm not saying this is always the case. Some areas are pretty popular, but you could sell your 2-bed, 2-bath in the city and possibly buy 5 acres and a 3-bed somewhere out in the sticks. Now, I'm not saying that this is across the board. I'm not saying this is all acreage, but for the most part, you're going to be getting a lot more house for a lot less money if you get out of the city. Perk number four, less noise. Now, the only time you'll hear a car alarm go off is either if your kid's got a hold of the keys again, or, oops, I locked my keys in the car. You're not really going to be dealing with break-ins. You're not really going to be dealing with neighbors' cars going off. You're not going to really have honking horns. A lot of that riffraff that comes along with living around a lot of people just dissipates. You get to realize for the first time what it's like to hear nothing. Probably bugs and a lot of coyotes. And you'll get to hear what a fox sounds like for the first time, which is pretty disturbing. But for the most part, the noise, the real noise, the people noise is completely gone. And perk number five, my favorite perk is getting to see wildlife all the time. Now, this being said, you do get dangerous wildlife every now and then. I mean, we do have mountain lions and bears and bobcats and coyotes, but to be honest, for the most part, they're not out to get you. They are being pushed out of their environments by a lot of development, so a lot of these rural properties are seeing much more wildlife, which is super cool because you get to see entire herds of deer. We used to have 100 head of elk that would come through our property a couple times a week. I mean, we've seen bears, we've seen coyotes, we've seen bobcats, we've seen foxes, we've seen raccoons. I mean, it is way cool, it is way fun. Kids love to get to see all these different animals in their natural habitat, as natural as it can be. As I mentioned before, the scream of a fox is pretty disturbing, so if you do end up buying a rural property, don't panic if you hear someone being murdered out in your backyard. It's probably just a fox. On to the cons. You can't have the good without the bad. Con number one, and probably the biggest one, is maintenance. The more land you have, the more maintenance you have to do. You have to mow all that grass. You have to do a lot of your own landscaping because it's pretty tough to get people to come out into the middle of nowhere to do work for you. You have to mend your fences. Now, wildlife, as I mentioned, is going to be in and out of your property, and they are pretty hard on fencing. You do have to keep an eye on your septic tank and your well, and there's just basic upkeep. There's more land, more problems, more money, more problems, more land, more maintenance. Con number two is definitely distance from amenities. Now, I'm not saying that all these properties are really far away from a grocery store. Some of them are actually pretty close. But for the most part, if you're going to be buying land, you're going to be consolidating trips. So if you go out to go to the doctor, you're also probably going to be grocery shopping and getting gas. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It does make you a little more economical and plan exactly what you're going to do while you're out. But if you want to make that quick trip to the grocery store, it's not so quick, and it needs to be a pretty big trip for it to be worth it. So, also eating out is pretty unusual, and you usually have like a couple of restaurants to choose from for the most part, unless you want to drive really far. And con number 3, and honestly in my opinion the most difficult con when it comes to rural properties, is that your utilities are going to be a completely different set than you're used to from living in the city. You're likely to be on well, you're likely to have a septic, and you're very likely to be on propane. Make sure that you have Wi-Fi. Now, this seems like a silly statement, especially that Wi-Fi is everywhere, but all it takes out in the sticks is one misplaced hill between you and that tower, and you don't have Wi-Fi. So, now depending on your personality, your skill set, your resources, your experiences, living out on land could be just the thing for you. I gotta say, one of my absolute favorite childhood memories is out being on property and actually getting to go do what I wanted to do. Now I hope this was helpful. I will definitely go into more depth about do's and don'ts, pros and cons, things to know about rural properties in other videos. My name's Haley Rich, and I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have a great day. A whole acreage full of weeds. Con number 2, no, we're still on con number 1. And groceries and doctor, so that you're not driving 100,000 miles in the year. Jingling, you can't just be quiet for 5 more minutes? Heck. Come here. Hey, Frey, come here. Let me see you. Hi. This is my big one. Dog hair.